All right, y'all, it's June. It's June, and June means that it is National Dairy Month. That means we are celebrating dairy all the way. And today we're actually going to be doing some milk testing for our Nigerian Dwarf Goat herd, which is basically I'm taking samples of their milk, sending it to a lab and seeing how freaking wonderful they are. All right, guys, before I get ahead of myself, the whole purpose of this video is obviously it's National Dairy Month. So we want to spread some dairy awareness by sharing some of the practices that we follow here on Mulberry Branch Farm. I love my Nigerian Dwarf Goats. I am your resident crazy goat lady. They are my jive. I love having goats. I love being able to provide dairy, farm, fresh, raw goat's milk to my family, in which we use for cheeses, to drink and consume raw, to put into goat milk soaps. We do all of the things with the milk. So it only makes sense that we milk test and kind of know exactly what is in our milk and to let us know about the production of our animals, which for working dairy farms, whether the commercial or backyard, is kind of important to know. But before we get too far into the wonderful world of milk testing and all that it requires, I want to give a special shout out to the Inquisitive Farmwife and the Mennonite Farmhouse. This is actually a collaboration that these two fine gals invited me to be a part of, and I'm really excited to share some awareness on dairy. Just make sure that you know that throughout this collaboration, it is the entire month of June. Every single day, if you're interested about dairy, whether it be dairy goats, dairy cattle, dairy sheep, yes, there are dairy sheep, and there are lots of other livestock that can produce milk for you, much like Homesteady had camels that they used to milk. But in this collaboration, you'll have a chance each day, if you just look down in that description box, to find new and wonderful creators that are a part of this collaboration. Not only that, there's going to be a live stream on July 5th. I will have the details on the screen too, because I cannot remember the time right now while I'm speaking. And during that live stream, there will be a live prize drawing. How do you get into the prize drawing? You make sure that you comment on this video, and it has to be a genuine comment, no copy and pasting. And if it's going to be a hateful comment, you're going to be thrown right out too, because we want to promote only positive comments along with those that are seeking the pursuit of education when it comes to dairy. So if at any point throughout this video you want to ask me a question about my dairy goats, my dairy goat management, the practices that I use for handling milk, maybe some recipes that I use for goat milk soap, which I haven't made a lot of videos on that yet, just because I want to make sure that I am doing everything right and I can put together a seamless video for you guys that is easy and fun to follow along with. So without further ado, guys, I've jawed enough. Let's go ahead and get into milk testing and why we actually milk test here on Mulberry Branch Farm. Enjoy, y'all. So I started my day by actually milking out my girls at the very beginning and separating kids, because you can't milk test if you don't have an accurate representation of a full 12 hours. My goodness, it's windy. You have to have a full 12-hour fill twice. So to break that down and make it a little bit more understandable, we take a sample of a 24-hour lactation period, which means that the kids have to be separated from their dams for 24 hours. In the 24 hours, I take samples 2 times. I take one sample 12 hours after I've separated and milked out the dams, and then I take my second sample 12 hours after the first sampling. So I'm going to show you guys some of the things that we have. My skills actually inside, because I'm prepping out here. I actually won't bring my girls in until around 8 o'clock. I milked them out at 8 a.m. this morning. I will bring them in at 8 p.m. I will take their first 12-hour fill. I will weigh the milk. I will take samples, and the DHI cooperative I'm going through is the DHI cooperative in Columbus, but the Indiana Dairy Association is who does all of my tests, and they send me this lovely little cooler container full of these vials, and you guys can see that I've already gone through and I've put all of my girls' names on it. You can see who's going to be done today, and on the side I've actually put my herd code. It's important to have that information on those little vials, because that's how, when the lab gets these results, they know who to put them under. They know that that's my herd code, so that Dreamer number 16 is part of this herd code, and they can help to store that data and send it back to me accurately. And something that's important, you guys will see like in each one of these, I don't know if it's gonna catch it. There it is. So there's a little pill in there. It's got a preservative. So what happens is when I actually take my sample, I'm going to fill it halfway up. And actually there are little lines like on these. I don't know if the light's gonna catch it just right. There are lines on these that kind of mark where the halfway point is and how full it can get. A lot of times I'll mark that with a permanent marker so I can actually see it. But today I'm in a hurry. Today I'm in a hurry. But I'm gonna talk to you a little bit after we go through some of our milking and our weighing and our sampling and some of the results for this milk test, why I think this is such a great tool for any dairy goat herd. We do a lot of our testing and all of our milking actually with our simple pulse machine here. You can see that my simple pulse setup, I can milk 2 goats at one time, which is why my milk parlor is kind of set up like this. I run a doe up each side, turn on the machine, attach the inflations after we've cleaned and washed the udder to make sure that the milk is clean, that the udder is clean so that none of that gets caught in the test. Not to mention a clean udder means you're more likely to get clean milk. And we actually use a machine like this because we really do worry a lot about the quality and the cleanliness of our milk. By using these inflations and making sure that the udder is clean, we can ensure that only the milk and maybe a small amount of debris that might still remain on the teat goes in, and there's actually a place inside here that has a filter that catches air, dirt, and debris. Now you'll see when I go through this test that I try to make sure to empty my lines between each doe. I know that a lot of different people will tell you to make sure that it's clean, the lines are clean, everything's clean, but honestly, the amount of residual milk from one doe to the other is almost next to none. You guys can come in here and see, we've got a couple that they can still squeeze out. But here are all the kids that have been separated already for almost 12 hours that will be reunited with their mamas in the morning time. But they do have a really good nurse. That lamb bar, that milk bar right there, makes it so they can pretty much nurse whenever they want. The whole purpose of a milk test is to actually be able to test it, take weights, and send in a sample to a lab. The reason you're doing this is we want to know how much milk is that goat on average producing, how much have they produced up to that point in their lactation, which in other words, are they putting the milk in the pail? Are they putting it in the pail? Which this could be the poundage, the weight of their milk, along with their butterfat content and their protein, which also can be weighed out over the course of time. We're actually on our 3rd milk test. So we have a couple of girls that are getting ready to come in here that it's their 3rd time testing. Rosie, it's her 1st time, and I think Tulip, it's her 2nd time. We will keep testing every single month, if not every 15 days. Sometimes if we feel like our schedule is gonna be super busy and we cannot get any time to pull kids and set them aside because guys, it's 4-H season, it's softball season, it's all the things. But the reason we really love to test our dairy goat herd is it really tells us who our best producers are. All right, so our results have come back. I normally do a lot of my testing on the weekends because it's a lot more convenient for me because even though we homestead and we do a lot with our dairy goat herd, I still work a 9 to 5 and milk testing adds quite a bit of time to my daily routine. So I tend to do that on a weekend where I have more time to my disposal. And then I will normally ship off my samples and my paperwork on Monday morning. And then usually by the next week, I've got my numbers back. So I'm actually gonna go over some of the numbers for our girls, and I'm going to help you understand how we use this milk test to better our herd. All right, y'all, the report is in for this last milk test. So how you read these papers, it probably looks like a lot of gibberish if you don't know what you're looking for. First off, I can show you is that all of my does' names are here in the index column under barn name. And they each have their own little number so that I know what number in the lineup that they are. Over here, you can see we've got protein and fat. So that's what these numbers represent. So the 4.2 is how much protein she made. The 4.8 is how much fat she made. Your protein number should always be lower than your butter fat. If it's not, it's considered an inversion, which you can see we do have a doe here, which that's Pinky. This was her her last milk test of this year because I just want to let her have a year off. She's the best doe in my herd right now. She linear appraised as an 88 last year, so I figure she deserves a nice rest. But she was pretty close to an inversion here, but she didn't quite make it. We have another here, Molly, who is also being dried up that almost has an inversion. Then we've got Bonnie here, who has 3.5 in protein and 7.1 in butterfat. That's pretty good. Then over here in this specific column, they've got Emmy protein and Emmy milk. So this is what they're projecting that Merida is going to make if she stays on a 305-day lactation. She's going to need roughly 600 and some pounds to get her milk star when it comes to poundage overall. I'll have to look at protein and fat, but this is how much she's made so far this year is 7 pounds in protein, 8 pounds in fat. And you can see that all the way down here. And even these papers, this report does give you a letter grade for your does based on their performance. So you can see I have 2 B's, I have a couple of E's, a D, and a C. So really this year is not looking good for me for milk stars. And that's okay. We're still building our herd of performance Nigerian dwarf goats. We're still building on production lines when it comes to milk production. So I'm not really too worried about these, but they do kind of give me a strong indicator on who's going to leave. I already know that Molly and Bonnie, based off of their lactations this year, along with some other different characteristics, will not be staying with the herd. Now, I have high hopes for Dreamer, Skids, and Tulip in their next lactation. These are all first fresheners, so really they're not doing all that bad. Year to date, Merida's made 168 pounds, Haley's made 213. We have Rosie, who just started her lactation, and you can tell, it will tell you how long that this doe has actually been in milk, and that's going to be DIM, which is days in milk. So you can tell how long each one of these girls has been lactating, which kind of gives you a good indication of how productive they're being. Further into lactation, some of them tend to drop off. They tend to peak around 90 days, and then after that they slowly start to go down. So we have a little bit of promise here. I'm excited about Dreamer and Skids, and Tulip, this was only her second test. So these 3 first fresheners will probably stay in my herd, whereas others probably won't stay. If you guys have any questions on this specific report, or if you have a difficulty understanding it, please let me know down in the comments. I'm happy to answer in any way that I can. But you can just kind of tell it's got name, status code, so this is when they each freshened. You have a code next to them. 3 signifies dry, and 2 means that they're in milk. I have 6, 6 is 6, and a 6. So the 4 6s are because they are first time fresheners, so that they can project accordingly, because first fresheners usually do not make as much milk as second, third, fourth, and so on. You kind of get the idea. Mighty Mouse was coded as dry. She actually miscarried, but we've got her coded as dry. Oh yeah, that's the report. I forgot to mention that this column right here are the test results for the actual milk test day this month. All the other columns we've been going over are the lactation to date. Just wanted to be clear on that. So I hope that helped you guys to understand a little bit about what we're looking for on our milk test and how to translate some of those different columns into what they mean. There are some girls in there that are looking good. They're probably going to get their milk star this year. Milk stars are awarded to does that produce either enough poundage for just overall poundage per the year or their lactation period, or butterfat content or protein. They have to make so much of that in a year to get what is called a milk star. Now, if they want an AR star, which is an advanced registry within the American Dairy Goat Association, I'm pretty sure they have to hit all 3 of those, and I have to milk for at least 8 months, which for good dairy goats, that's not hard at all. For dairy goat breeders or stewards of dairy goats that also have like 9 to 5s or have some family, or that's just not like their main focus, that might not be desirable. An AR star might not be for you. I'm not going for AR stars just yet because this is only my 2nd year doing milk testing. And I drove myself to do a 2nd year because I love data. I love numbers. I love being able to see my goat's production on paper. And it has really helped me to understand what I am feeding, what a certain amount of protein will do for them, what fiber impacts for their diet when it comes to butterfat content. I know what a butterfat and a protein inversion means, and I know how I need to adjust that when it comes to their dietary needs, because that reflects on my management as a dairy goat steward. And it also reflects on the production of that dough. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't have dairy goat herd members that they just need extra. They need extra. Maybe they just have the will to milk, where they put it all in the pail and they need maybe an extra cup or 2 of grain. They might need some type of dietary supplement to keep that caloric intake up so that their body can sustain the amount of milk that they're producing. I'm totally okay with that if they're putting it in the bucket, but if you have a doe, let's say, that is getting the exact same amount of feed, she's body conditioned pretty closely to the doe next to her, and same age, not much difference between those 2 does except for production, I can easily see that on a milk test. And because we milk test every month, if not every 15 days, sometimes if our life is too crazy, I can track that lactation on that specific doe. And it's going to tell me if she's a productive doe, if she's a thrifty doe, or if she's just not all that productive and I'm feeding her the same amount as the doe next to her, who is probably spot on every category: age, conditioning, health, and she's just not producing as much. For me, that makes it pretty easy to know who needs to maybe go to a 4-H home or to a new dairy goat enthusiast where they're trying to learn the ropes. And I've already got a really nice milk stand trained milk goat that knows when the stand offers food, and that they're used to being hand or machine milked like we do here. So even though they might not make the cut here, I find a lot of solace in creating a nice little dairy goat for someone else who has different goals than I do. Because you will find in dairy, different dairy goat farms, my management practices are not going to be the same as someone down the road. And if I find someone who's doing exactly what I am doing, like, that's crazy, because it's in homesteading and animal stewardship over land and livestock, there's a million different ways to do just one thing. And I think that's beautiful. I find that admirable. So don't be discouraged if I show you numbers, or if someone you know is showing you numbers or going to shows, and they've got all these accolades. It just gives you something to strive towards, and a realization that your goals are different than somebody else's goals is just, that's freedom in your soul. Like, that unbinds your heart from comparison, because comparison is the thief of joy. Now, that does happen sometimes when I'm comparing one doe to the other, especially if I have maybe a closer bond with the doe that's not that productive. And that's okay sometimes. Sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet and keep the one that's not that productive, because you just love them so much. We have a couple of those in our barn, but there have been a couple that they went on to be a productive member for somebody else. They just didn't make the cut here, and that's totally okay. So I hope that helps you guys understand a little bit about what we're doing here on Mulberry Ranch Farm, why we do our milk testing, and that those numbers, that data that's given to us through milk test, helps us to know who's a thrifty doe, who's a productive doe, especially if they're in their 7th lactation and they are still pumping out the milk. That tells me they are a long producing doe. They have a lot of longevity, that their body's holding up to the demands of lactation, and that's wonderful when you're running a dairy. And sometimes even those milk records from my does or someone else's doe, when I'm looking to buy a buck to spice up my genetic pool here, if I can see milk tests from their dams, it helps me to make a really good pairing. It helps to give me a really good vision of what I can expect from those genetics. Even though genetics are rolling a dice most of the time, I know what could be, because those are the numbers behind that animal. But But yeah, that's why we do milk testing here. We really love our dairy goats here. We care a lot about them. We care a lot about what they give to us, and we care a whole heck of a lot about what we give back to them. We're crazy goat ladies, crazy goat people, crazy goat men and kids here. It's just what we do. All right, guys, so I hope that you have enjoyed this video. This video on milk testing for the month of June, because June is National Dairy Awareness. I want to say a big thank you to the Inquisitive Farmwife and the Mennonite Farmhouse for inviting us to be a part of this collaboration. Do not forget that on July 5th at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, they will be doing a live stream where they're giving away goodies, they're giving away prizes, and the way that you get into that is that you drop a genuine comment in the comment section below. Make sure you visit the description box and meet all of those other content creators that are also giving you their spin on National Dairy Month. So in the meantime, guys, I hope that you have all enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comment section, leave me a like, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But we hope that you are all staying safe out there and being kind to one another. God bless you. We will catch you all in the next one. Bye, y'all.